All right. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late. Everybody hear me all right? All right. Another my weekly American Idol update. Glad to see Keyla made it through the top 11, and more congratulations to her. She's continuing to do an awesome job and cheering her on. There was some conversation about moving the press conference in the building to later in the week. I would probably, if I were in the news business, may stay tuned on some big sailing news this week. Probably will be after today, but it's definitely a good thing for Pensacola. So looking forward to that. We thought maybe it would be today or tomorrow, but might be a little later this week. So that's all I'll tell. That's all I'll tell you. You'll have to ask the people responsible. It's the only tip I can give you. Appreciate our consultants from WT coming in and briefing the CRA on just the initial conversation. Looking forward to at least starting the ball rolling with the joint meeting discussing the Bay Center. And of course, I think having realistic expectations, which is not just proverbially saying getting the ball rolling. I think that is literally what we have to do, and to not get ourselves in a situation where we're talking about this for 4 and 5 years. And so, I certainly enter this as collaborative as possible, and I do not see the role of the city nor the role of the city administration that we have an expectation that we're the leader of this. I think we are all collectively the community leaders in a community project. And so I see my role as not one of the governing bodies, but being able to work independently, if that allows both the county and the city to be able to move this along a little faster, a little more nimble, and that's what our contribution is at the administration, at the request of the county or the city. Trying to bring these two bodies together and at least get us to, as I said in the meeting yesterday, get us to some finality. If that looks like the recommendation from our folks is that an RFI take place, say, and I'm going to oversimplify this, but ultimately say, hey, city and county, what do you want? What are the preferences? And let's get that on paper and get it out to the private market and see if there's interest. And there might be interest, there might not be interest, but that's what I mean by not assuming that anything is final or concrete. But just to go from just vision conversation and move into really adding some, making that vision tangible and trying to move that project forward. So looking forward to that conversation on the 16th, and WT will be there to present to all of us as well. I've had a chance. I know I was in front of y'all last week. I've had a chance to review the existing ARA application. It's a long one, but I would say in its current form, and of course I've notified Harold Dawson and his team. I don't support it in its current form. I think trying to match a public benefit with what that investment is, a proposed $58 million, is just something that we're going to have to look further into. To be clear, my opinion is just that on two fronts. Number one, the CRA continues to do its independent analysis of that request with our outside advisors as the ARA calls for. I actually suspect, based on the early information, that there will be an additional request, which is also outlined in the ARA application, that the applicant agree to a deeper financial analysis, just to make sure that we're speaking from this the same sheet of music here, singing from the same sheet of music, excuse me. So that continues. So I'm just sharing my opinion and the opinion I've shared with the applicants. My door's always open. My spreadsheet, my Excel works. We're happy to entertain anything, be it in the same version of this request with a better understanding of what the public return on investment is, a lesser request. So to be clear, I have no issue with any type of request of this form. I understand the complexity of a development of this size and all of the volatility and risk that it takes to take on a project of this size. I do not. I do not take that for granted. I always appreciate people wanting to invest in our city. So when I say our door's open, or my door's open on this opinion, we absolutely mean that. I just need more information to understand a $58 million potential request and what the public gets in return. So, so at this point, I would at this magnitude of dollars, I would remain a no on that because it's got to be we need to build buildings to help build our tax base, but it's got to be a city that works for everybody. And when you think about just the example, a general fire infrastructure request to protect a building like that, back in napkin estimates would be probably a $4.5 to $5 million infrastructure investment on top of a $2 million recurring investment. And that fire support wouldn't necessarily only support the development, to be clear, but a development of that size with that many stories would tip the scale to require a city investment of that magnitude. So that's just an anecdote of when we're going to give a discount on an abatement of that size, that doesn't take into consideration what the taxpayer is going to have to pay for. So again, I'm happy to continue conversations with them it is my opinion on the second front, which is this is at the end of the day rests with this board, the CRA board. There is no legal requirement nor ARA requirement that this have the approval of the mayor of the city of Pensacola. Ultimately, this is a financial decision that rests with the CRA, and frankly, they don't need my support. If they have the votes of support in the CRA board for their request, then that's a direction that they can go, and certainly I've made them aware of that as well. So that's where we are today. That obviously can change and evolve, and I'm looking forward to any additional conversations that they may want to have. A good news update on the ACW site. We have been able to, we've alluded to this, we've been kind of waiting for the formal clearance from EPA, but they have confirmed to us that the $8.6 million delta to finish phase one of ACW is anticipated in fiscal year 2026. So that's enormously good news for us. We had that $9 million delta, didn't know where we were going to go. I think I've mentioned to you guys, we've been to DC a couple of times. I'm going again tomorrow, and to try to work this as hard as we can. And so that was obviously great news from our EPA partners that that $8.6 million is anticipated in fiscal 26 to support the next phase of remediation. And obviously this has been a Superfund site that was placed on the priorities list in 1983 because of contaminated soil. And Pete Thorpe, the remedial project manager in the restoration and remedy section of EPA Region 4, which includes Pensacola, confirmed that the 8.6 will allow the agency to fully cover the estimated $48 million cost of this phase of remediation surrounding the residential parcels and the main ACW site. So there obviously is still a phase 2 conversation to have, and we continue those conversations with EPA, another large number to do the thermal extraction. But we are just extremely grateful to everybody at EPA, everybody on our staff here in the building that's worked so diligently to get us here. So certainly want residents to know we'll continue to advocate in Washington. I'll be there in 24 hours to make sure that this project continues to get the attention that it deserves. But it's obviously a proud moment and a grateful moment to say this is why you go pound the pavement up there, is to be able to have these important conversations, to be able to state our case, and to be able to get something across the finish line. So lots of people in this building involved in that as well. And again, very, very grateful to the EPA for stepping up for us. Heads up on April 13th, next week, Government and B Street work. It will be temporary closed at Government and B for 1 month. And that's for the stormwater project that's now moving north from Main Street that we all see there. So drivers traveling on West Government between A and C will be detoured to Intendencia, and drivers traveling south on B Street will be detoured to A. So that it is expected to end May 13th, weather permitting. So please be patient with us. That will begin this coming Monday. So any word that you can get out on that. The Quick Baptist update. Actually, before that, a couple other closures. Sorry. This week is the Brancas reduced to 2 lanes between L and I, and that's work being done by both the city and ECUA. with the drainage improvement project. And then phase 2 of that would be May 11th, and that's southbound vehicles on K Street accessing Barrancas will be detoured to Zaragoza. So I know I'm talking verbally instead of seeing a map. We'll get those maps out to you. I don't expect you to have our street grid memorized, but lots of projects happening in this Barrancas government area, kind of here on the southwest side of the city. So just we'll make sure that we get all of that out there, and want to thank Public Works again for their hard work and to make sure that we have these dates to allow the drivers to anticipate any potential delays. One more reminder of the next town hall on the demolition, April 16th, and that's in addition to folks from Jacobs Engineering and North Star. We will have somebody from Paces there as well, who is doing the 2 affordable developments there on site, and so you'll be able to ask them some questions as well. And we obviously demolition work is underway. And we're continuing to look at, any city side tree plans and tree removals, continuing to work with our city arborists on that. And let's see, I've got, that's one other thing, the heightened enforcement with PPD this past weekend. In collaboration with Florida Highway Patrol, we had heightened enforcement on drunk and aggressive driving because of Easter weekend, spring break weekend with some regional schools. So, and so far in 2026, we've seen the 3 traffic fatalities. 2025, there were 12, and that's a sharp increase from 3 in 2024. So using overtime grant funding, the police selected a specialized group of officers to work with FHP, and that resulted in 50 traffic stops, 6 DUI arrests, 1 arrest for DUI and super speeder, 1 arrest for DUI and felony narcotics, 1 super speeder arrest, and a handful of others. So thank you to FHP and our PPD guys for keeping us safe out there. That is everything I've got for you, and happy to take your questions.
Mayor, at the CRA last night, during the discussion of the WTU report, you mentioned that the tech park history actually was a phase 2 of the original base center.
That's correct.
Would you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll have my year wrong, but before it was a tech park, it was surmised as the phase 2 expansion of the base center property. And there's I don't remember if it's in a CRA update or which document and I'm sure it's in many documents where that is why that existed. And then certainly makes sense to try to increase economic development and say, hey, here's property that where we can do it. But my position on how a collaboration between the tech park and the Bay Center property would work is this always reminds me of the early port conversation days when I got here, which was either you're going to build condos or it's going to be all aggregate rock, and there's nowhere in between. I feel like the in between with the tech park is nothing would stop the continued search for job opportunity or to have job growth on site. I would think that those buildings might need parking because there's not enough parking for any building of any size currently there right now. So why not marry those 2 uses and be anticipatory for parking needs for any buildings that would be put there for economic development reasons, as well as being able to serve the Bay Center and a second facility. That doesn't take all the acreage, to be able to, you wouldn't want it to, right, to build a parking structure there. So it's too early to say, oh, we absolutely have to do that. We got to see what does the county want? What does the city want? What does the community want? Do we have the funding for a second facility? If we don't, well, then now all of a sudden parking structure isn't as paramount, right? Because you wouldn't be taking away all the existing parking in the east parking lot. So lots to work through. All I'm saying is sometimes these tech park discussions get positioned as all or nothing, take it all back or leave it all alone. I think there might be a harmonious solution potentially to Bay Center, which is take part of it that actually helps the tech park and helps the Bay Center. And so that's just one idea. And listen, over the next 6 months or year, that could be thrown in the wash and we'd be moving on to some other place. But what if Grand Hotel becomes part of the involvement and maybe a structured parking makes more sense on the ground over there? Who knows? So lots to work through, but I just want to be clear about that aspect. I do not take a position that it's got to be all or nothing on the tech park. I think if there's something that helps both, then we should pursue that.
Are you agree with WT when they said that the market for condominiums is pretty well saturated, and that the markets that are ripe are retail and entertainment, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, they're the experts. They have those databases of which to study. I'd hate to, it certainly makes sense to me based on I wouldn't say that was anything that you just said to me would be a surprise. But understand, they're looking at this in the ability to make this development pencil. And what I mean is, I'll repeat what I said in the meeting yesterday, which is, this is a presumption that of if we presume that the county's interested in using the $75 million remaining of the bed tax that's been discussed, that's a big presumption, and that's something they're going to have to confirm, right? That isn't something controlled by the city, but for the sake of discussion, if that is the discussion, then $75 million will absolutely not fund an overhaul of a Bay Center and a second facility. There's just no planet of which those two things will be funded by that amount of money. So what next? And that's what I thought was the most fascinating part of this study. If you were to thumb through it and read the Cliffs Notes, is the reason we talked a lot about transportation and making this a TOD designated site and TIFIA funding. Those are federal funding opportunities, federal loan opportunities that can take a project from not penciling to one that does pencil. And so I think that's just another anecdote of trying to think outside the box about how you would fund something of this scale. One of my biggest takeaways from the study was when they mentioned, I've wavered back and forth. Should it just be a convention center if that's what got built, or should it be multi-purpose where sports could go in it? And then are you kind of jack of all and you don't really nail anything? That I had some initial anxiety, but per their study, they say, listen, if you want private investment to be able to put up significant dollars, the more days or nights or weekdays or weekends that second facility is being used, the more pencilable the project's going to be in the private market. So we should be considering things that make private dollars more bountiful to be able to make the project work. And I think they used the example, I think in Fargo, North Dakota, where they had gone out to RFP twice on a convention center, got no bids. And then when they said, okay, well, we'll let you put a hotel on it, then they got bids. So, again, hopefully we're getting to that process of where we can, roll that forward. But I just know, and I'm sure we're all aware, all of the elected leaders are aware that $75 million isn't going to renovate a 40-year-old arena with any significant renovation that's being discussed and at a second facility. So there's going to be decisions to be made, and I think there's going to be strategy around how we best partner with the private market to be able to come up with the funds that don't have to just come from the taxpayer, that can come from somewhere else.
They mentioned to the CRA yesterday that all of the projects that they looked at, Fargo, everywhere else, involved tax subsidies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that realistic?
Well,
in today's environment?
Look, I think if we snapped our fingers and we had a convention center or a multi-purpose facility, any of the facilities, and they said this very clear in their study and in the meeting yesterday, none of these facilities make money solely operationally, right? If you look at it, and sometimes detractors of facilities will look at it siloed only as, well, can a convention center make money or not make money? And I made the point yesterday, the county, in Escambia County, the beach doesn't make money, right? No, admission is free. So if you look at the beach as its own facility, we pay to renourish it. We pay as a community. The county spends a lot of money maintaining it. You got to have sheriff's department out there, So if you look at it isolated to just what the asset is and what it costs us to protect, then national parks. I'm sure Yosemite National Park doesn't financially pencil, but what does it do for the surrounding economy? That's the question. And so I think we have to always respond. If we're going to talk about the Bay Center or a second facility or both, what you're really looking at is the ROI is in bed tax that would be generated by having conventions in our downtown and sales tax. So you can't look at it just in the silo of operational profit and loss. Of course, you want it to break even as best as you can, or make money, God willing. But the secondary mechanism of return on investment is happening outside these buildings. It's not because you expect it to happen. You know, we 85% of our tourism here comes for the beach. I think there's a return on investment for the beach existing, and no one says, I can't believe no one charges to go out on the sand, or I can't believe how much we spend to renourish, because we know the treasure that it is and the reverberating economic impact it has on our community. So I don't look at the Bay Center project any differently than the idea that we're supposed to be building the most cost-efficient, cost-neutral machine to generate bed tax and property tax that helps refuel the economy.
Mayor, looking at the Hard Rock development, originally CRA rebate wasn't supposed to be a part of the equation. So how has the project shifted, and why do you think it's part of the conversation now?
Well, what's not new is the idea of shifting costs. Again, I completely understand, and I will reiterate the complexity, and I think what gets very little credit publicly is the risk profile and volatility of a project of this size and scale. So when I say that as proposed right now, I don't support it, doesn't mean I don't support the project, doesn't mean I don't appreciate the potential investment here, the development group. It's nothing personal to those ideas. I just, at that intensity, because the lease was approved on the idea that this wasn't going to be requested. And to be fair to the investors, that they had said that they may put an application in, but an application at ARA is up to 100%. It's not all or nothing. Secondarily, ARA applications came into existence prior to Live Local Act coming into existence. So a lot of what the ARA application actually provides for is a subsidy for affordable housing. Well, there's a subsidy for affordable housing that's already taking place, which I fully support. It's preempted anyway, doesn't really matter. But even if it wasn't, the idea of creating affordable units and subsidizing that makes a lot of sense. But to do that twice in two different applications, I think, by no one's fault. Just the ARA came into existence, state legislature brought in Live Local, and I think that's now potentially has a duplicative tax break in scenarios like this. So we'll see what happens. Again, I'm open to conversation with them, open to the defense of that. Certainly, if the development group wants to get with our outside consultants and make sure numbers are right, and I think there's still some work to do there to make sure that we're all, because they may say it's 2.9 million per year. Does that include Live Local or not? Does Live Local get taken out before they calculate TIF? So there's even some things to work through. We're not even 2.9 is their number. That's not even been confirmed. It may be less than that with the actual tax that would be coming to the CRA. So again, more to work through. And I'm not saying I don't support the project. I just mean we received an application for a $58 million subsidy from the taxpayer, and I don't support it at this juncture, and I'm happy to continue to entertain those conversations moving forward.
Should we still have the TIF rebate?
Sure. I mean, I think we just talked about another example of that. When I think about a project, say a Bay Center, let's use the Grand Hotel. If someone came to the Grand with the engine that would create at the Bay Center, here's a building that's been offline for 6 years. It's within a CRA. It has historic preservation aspects to it. It has potential combination of compounding taxpayer dollar or taxpayer investment across the street. Well, that might be an area where you would be motivated to do that. A Baptist hospital. If someone came in and said, we're going to build a healthcare access and food access and education access as part of needing a rebate, great. Community Land Trust. I mean, that's another example. Those types of partnerships where we can convey the clear public return on investment. So I'm not against the idea of that at all. It's just a matter of doing this, as I always say. Y'all are tired of hearing me say, I do the same math a developer does, and the math has to math to us. And we just have to be able to say, for this amount of money, this is what you get. And that's what we have to be able to
So
analyze.
a hotel is more valuable at the Bay Center than it is to have one at the Community Maritime Park.
No, I think a hotel that would connect to a taxpayer-funded facility that is unactivated and has a historic preservation aspect to it, then you start to calculate what the public good is. I think there's public good in the historic preservation of the train station. I think there's public good in having a hotel connected to a convention center that then feeds local and small businesses. So it's not saying one's bad and one's good. I just think every application, every request of a subsidy needs to be taken on its own merits. And frankly, that's why I'm not a huge proponent of the ARA as a whole, of no fault of these current developers. I just think it's too rigid to say, well, this would work and would convey on every project. What are you bringing to the table? And I've just never really been a believer off the cuff of saying we should be subsidizing as taxpayers market rate public or private investment unless it's meeting some type of public need. And that can be debated. I'm sure they would say, well, then here's some public needs that it meets, and they mentioned some in the application, but I don't know that in my opinion that it meets a $58 million request at this point. But if they have more information, if they have information we don't have in the application about how it does create that public good, I'm open eyes, open ears to whatever discussion that they want to have.
Well, they're saying that they've gone to 4 big lenders and that even a personal guarantee from Diane Hendricks still isn't enough to pull the project off to make it pencil for lenders.
Yeah, and listen, maybe so. I think, no, that's right. Obviously, that's what they've conveyed to us. On the flip side of that, I probably would wait. I would wait to go to underwriters before we understood what the general appetite of the city's that request would be. Right. So totally appreciate that what they're looking at and how much they can finance. But I think we've kind of backed into that. If there was going to be tea leaves that it was going to require a $50 or $60 million abatement, I would think that's probably a ground floor conversation to have at the city level, at the city council level, not we've now gotten underwriting contingent upon an ARA, and now we hope that you're in this corner and that you either grant or deny. I think we've got to have us being able to help engineer that to either finality that it works or it doesn't work would have probably been a better way to do it, but that doesn't mean we aren't open to having that conversation now. But we were not part of the engineering of this request, or there wasn't much consultation between the developers in my office on this request. We received the request in late February. We sent it to our outside analysts, and here we are. So.
What kind of timetable?
Sorry.
What kind of timetable are we looking for is making this decision? Because they want a ground break, in September.
Yeah, look, I'm willing to be as aggressive at any time. If they want to meet as soon as possible with me, which let me be clear, they don't have to. They don't have. They can say, Mayor, we don't care what your opinion is, and if they got 4 votes on CRA for exactly what's proposed, and I respect that. Meaning, if that's the way it goes, and I would not stand in their way of that, because that is certainly their right to request, and the CRA board's right to give, whether the mayor likes it or doesn't. But I'm willing to work as diligently and aggressively as possible and I can only speak for my opinion on this, to change my opinion or to evolve that. And I leave that open-ended with you publicly. I hope to get to a point where whatever that request is, that I'm coming back to you in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or whatever, and say, hey, all right, I've got a better understanding of it, or that they've given us a concession on this or that or the other, and we get to a good place. But we aren't slow walking it by any means. Again, we've only been aware of this request since, it came in on February 26th. I've only been aware of it for about 10 days. So we will work as diligently as possible, or as diligently as they would like to. But again, nothing necessarily stops them on their trajectory to bring this to a CRA board meeting, nor would I ever, try to influence them not being able to take that vote. If that's what they want to do, I respect that. I respect the governmental process that they don't necessarily need my support. I certainly would like to support it. They don't need it. And so anyway, we're, again, open eyes, open ears, happy to discuss as soon as possible.
Mayor, the addition in the ARA application of 49 market rate residences, is that there's room to negotiate in there? I mean, they had none before. Live local was okay. They got 49 now. I'm assuming live local legislation is okay with that. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't take 10 more market rate residences to push this thing over the $58 million. In other words, impact.
Well, let me first talk about just to level set from a couple years ago, the $55 million number that is in the lease, and I've shared this with the developers as well. The $55 million minimum number that's in that lease was only born from the original $110 million required investment on lots 4 and 5 when those were tied together. So we simply split that number from 110 to 55. So I know that one of the value propositions that's offered is, well, hey, the lease only requires that we were to invest $55 million. Yes and no. We split that from the sake of simplicity, not because we only thought the building was going to be $55 million. Clearly, go look at the lease approved August 9th, 2024. The building being discussed is nowhere in the stratosphere of $55 million. So in spirit, there has been a full understanding, maybe not to the exact number. We didn't say 279 million or 249 million, but clearly the approval of this lease was built around the idea of generally what's being built now. So I don't want any revisionist history that we're only required to build 55 million. Yes, that's what the paper says, but all of the conversation, all of the meetings in public and city council, the lease was approved contingent upon what's being proposed to be built, not just meeting that $55 million threshold. So there is no science behind the $55 million other than the original 4 and 5 was 110. So we could have strong-armed that and just said, well, no, now you move all 110 to 5 since you're not doing 4 right now. But there was no need to do that because we had a general agreement on the direction that we were going. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah, happy to discuss. Whether the condos you mentioned, condos has been a more recent evolution, not in the last couple of weeks, but that's been, as they've updated as things go along. And I know that is one of the arguments, certainly a fair one, that these 49 condos for sale would then be paying, the development wouldn't be paying property tax, but the 49 condo units, if sold, and being paid for, would pay property tax, and we certainly understand and consider that. And the Live Local is 50% of the apartment unit, 99 of the 198 apartment units that remain. So there's still, what we have in front of us now is 49 condos, market rate condos for sale, 99 affordable units as defined by the Live Local Act, and another 99 market rate apartments, and then the 140-ish Key hotel. That's what's being discussed in concept with us.
Mayor, when do you hope to see the results from this analysis on the benefits to the community?
Well, let me be clear. The Lambert Advisors, that is our outside advisor for all the CRA projects. We use them on a multitude of things. They are not there necessarily to point out the public benefit. They're really our expert mathematicians looking at other projects. You look around and there's back to Rick's question about, are we for or against TIF? I think TIF can be a good model to use to help incentivize development. There's no doubt in general. But even when you look at like projects that have been discussed within this application, some of those have a cap. So for example, one of the ones mentioned has a cap of 30.2 million. So it may be 100% abatement up into a certain number, for example. There's a project in Jacksonville, the Four Seasons in Jacksonville. That's going next to, that is being subsidized with TIF, going next to a multi-billion-dollar stadium that maybe that investment doesn't get a flag of that caliber without that type of abatement. So there was a specific vision and a directed need. I think we have a vision to finally see something happen at Maritime Park. But comparing that to the necessity of historic preservation or a scenario like a Baptist campus or something like that, where we are saying, hey, this is what the community needs and this is how we want to incentivize it. This is a little bit different, in my opinion. So that is the analysis they're going to do. Is they're going to look at all of the financial assumptions of the application. They're going to look at all the financial assumptions and come back to the CRA and say, this is what they're requesting. This is what you get. So we're not going off of my amateur math. We're going off of expert math to make sure that we understand exactly. And listen, that analysis could come back and maybe the severity of what we see off the cuff right now isn't as bad. I'm open-minded to that. So, but in terms of amenity and benefit, I think a lot of that's going to probably have to be figured out through conversation. There's no bigger benefit than increasing our tax base that helps us pay for police and fire. But again, if I was in the early stages of this conversation, I would have brought up the infrastructure it's going to take to protect a 13-story building, the fire infrastructure, and say, well, this is clearly a cost that's going to be going to the taxpayer. How do we want to handle that? And is that something that you want to provide or manage? Or, so even though we haven't had those conversations yet, I'm still certainly willing to have them if that's something they want to do.
Shifting
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Question. Habitat for Humanity is groundbreaking a 20-home subdivision today, and you campaign heavily on affordable and
Sure.
attainable housing. So does the city have anything similar in the works?
Yeah, we should be. Obviously, we're forging ahead aggressively with Malcolm Young. We are getting, I think, Thursday. We're handing off keys to the second CLT house to an owner. So it's already done, but it's now somebody's moving in into permanent affordability. So those three scattered sites are already complete. And again, one person's already moved in. This will be the second. The third will be coming shortly. Malcolm Young will have that 8 or 9 units of CLT, kind of similar to what you're talking about. Additionally, I've asked our staff to look at the 14 scattered sites. Commissioner May and I worked together on of course, the county had escheated properties and having dozens of sites, including some in the city, and say, hey, this is a crisis all over your district, our city. How can we work together? So we're moving ahead with potential conversations with CLT on those 14 scattered sites that we had accepted from the county, thanks to our partnership with them. So we're trying, again, we always are taking the shotgun approach, that we aren't going to have one project or one house or one multi-family development is going to solve our affordability need. We just got to be able to attack it on so many fronts, which is what we're trying to do, and stay as active as possible, whether it be Baptist, whether it be Motor Lodge, whether it be CLT or others, because there is no one size fits all. We're not going to wake up one day, do one development and say we've solved our affordability crisis. This is going to be something we're going to have to continue to attack at scale. Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.